Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the July meeting of Cabinet. My name is Councillor Millie Earle, and I'm the Deputy Leader of the Council and Vice Chair of Cabinet. And today I'll be chairing this meeting as Councillor Slade, who is the leader, is away, having been elected to Parliament. Next to me, I have Councillor Richard Burton, who's going to be assisting me with chairing the meeting today. I'd like to welcome members of the public who have given some time to come here today, and of course other councillors who are in the room and online. First of all, I'm going to hand over to Democratic Services Officer Sarah to go over the housekeeping for today's meeting.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of this building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Many thanks.
Thank you. So we move to agenda item 1, which is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Vicky Slade, who is away in Parliament, as previously mentioned. We also have Councillor Mike Cox joining us online for today's meeting. This means that he can't propose or second items. However, he can present papers that are within his portfolio. So we have quite a hefty agenda to get through since there wasn't a cabinet meeting in June because of the regulated election period. There's a possibility we may need to bring items relating to children and young people's portfolio forward, as Councillor Burton has another engagement he needs to get to. But we're going to see how we go, and if we're running short of time, then we can switch things around a little bit. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest. I don't think we've had any raised, but is there anything that Cabinet should make us aware of at this minute? No, so as we go through the agenda, if anything comes up, just let us know. Agenda item 3 is the confirmation of minutes of the last meeting of Cabinet, which was in May. Can I have a proposer for last month's minutes?
I'm quite happy to propose that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. And is there a seconder?
Yep, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And is there unanimous agreement that everything? Yes, Councillor Hadley.
Sorry, just trying to find it. There was a matter of inaccuracy in the minutes which I needed to raise. On page 3, it talks about a trial in Poole Park, and it mentions online for council vehicles. That should be motorised vehicles. So it's all vehicles, it's not council vehicles.
Thank you. Is everyone happy to accept that amendment and approve the minutes with that change? Can I see a show of hands? That's lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so agenda item 4 is public issues. We haven't had any petitions submitted from members of the public. However, we have received a question relating to agenda item 11, which is the south part of Beach Road car park. Mr. John Sprackling, could you come up to the microphone and press the button and ask your question, please?
If I read the report correctly, this is agenda item 11, it would seem that the business case is for the improvement of the north car park and the need for and the creation of a local traffic management scheme have yet to be written. May I have your assurance that these business cases will be written concurrently with the work associated with the sale of the south part of the site, so that a comprehensive appraisal can be considered on all aspects of the issue at one time? Can you also assure me that sensitivity analysis will be applied in any case where projected cash flows are used to support investment, e.g. parking receipts for further metering? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprackling. Councillor Mike Cox is going to answer your question. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sprackling, for the question. And to answer your question directly, yes, you have my assurance. The directors of commercial operations and planning and transport are presently engaged in finalising a brief for the business case for the rear car park, which will include a local traffic management plan. This is being done in consultation with estates, which will deal with the disposal to ensure that all the issues are addressed and that there is continuity of approach. The Director of Operations will assess various options in the business case for the rear car park with related projected incomes and sensitivity analysis, which will be applied to the same. So again, thank you for your question.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sprackling, for coming today. So we're going to move on to agenda item 5, which is recommendations from the overview and scrutiny committees and the board, and any items that are not otherwise on the agenda. So I think I'll start with Councillor Bartlett. Do you have any items from overview and scrutiny board that are not on the agenda?
We don't, thank you.
Thank you. I can't see. Oh, I'm getting a nod over there from Councillor Patrick Canvan from Health. We also don't have Councillor Rigby or Councillor Dove here from the Environment and Place and Children's Overview and Scrutiny Boards. So on that note, we'll move on to the bulk of the meeting, which is agenda item 6. As a starting point, this is going to be presented by Councillor Cox, but as he's not in the room, I'm going to put myself forward to propose it. Is there someone to second?
Yeah, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Yeah, the financial outturn for 23-24, this really is a good news story for the council. First of all, I'd like to remind everybody that the budget for that particular year, 23-24, was set by the previous administration, and despite the fact that there was £34 million worth of savings to the budget, a previously unprecedented amount of savings, which also included £6.7 million of unidentified transformation savings. This budget also relied on £30 million of drawdown from reserves, which effectively depleted reserves to an unacceptable level. The unprecedented savings targets were challenging, but nonetheless, the officers supported by the Three Towns Alliance delivered 94% of them. This was a very creditable achievement in the circumstances, no doubt assisted by the complete freeze on expenditure, which we had to bring in as soon as possible. In addition, we've been able to reduce the drawdown from the reserves by £7 million, which was 23% of the budget, which has come almost exclusively from the lower than expected demand for adult social care packages. The turnaround in children's services has come at a significant cost, as well as the investment that we made in transformational services of £2.5 million. That service area has overspent by £3.4 million due to excess demand. It needs to be noted that although we've a balanced budget for this year and the next few years, we have a zero, is no resilience reserves left to fall back on. The financial position of the council, whilst being stabilised, is still in a weak position, and we cannot relax on keeping a firm grip on the finances. So therefore, bar the exception of a small grant from Sport England in Appendix C, this report really is just to note. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. So just to confirm, we do have some councillors in the room and online who aren't members of Cabinet. So the process that we usually go through is to call on the chair of the relevant scrutiny, if it's been to scrutiny, to see whether they want to add anything. We then go to the other councillors for them to have their say, and then it and there is a 3-minute time limit for speaking. Once everyone outside of Cabinet has had their say, we then bring it to Cabinet for discussion and for any amendments to be debated, and then for a decision voted by majority. So this item was considered by Overview and Scrutiny Board. I would like to ask Councillor Bartlett, who is chair of that board, to address Cabinet and tell us if there were any recommendations.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Leader. There were no recommendations from the debate last evening, although it was a fairly lengthy debate. I think generally the committee or the board are very satisfied with the outcomes that we have, and I thank officers for the tremendous work that they put in order to achieve the results that we have. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. So now we're going to see if any councillors in the room who are not on Cabinet would like to speak on this item. I'm not seeing any indications. So over to Cabinet to discuss. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, I think I just wanted to comment. Councillor Cox covered it early on that we managed to draw down much less on the reserves than had been forecast by the previous Conservative administration. And I think that's not without pain. That we made a decision last year as a cabinet to sort of suspend any expenditure that wasn't sort of necessary for sort of statutory needs, etc., or any expenditure that was going to be made needed to be approved beforehand. So, and I know that's not easy for departments and for teams to actually cope with, that they can't just carry on business as usual delivering things. That actually, when there's things they need to spend, they need to get a high level of approval. But it's not easy and it's painful, but it's the sort of least painful way of delivering those savings, really. And I think that Councillor Cox is to be commended really for sort of overseeing that sort of delivery, and all of our finance teams, because I think it's really important that we didn't draw as much from our reserves. We needed to build up our resilience for the future as much as we could. So it's just really to highlight that it's not without pain. It's been difficult to deliver, but it's a really sort of creditable delivery. I could go into more discussion about areas within my sort of wellbeing portfolio, but it's all there within the report, and it sort of details the ups and downs there. So
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to celebrate the grant that Councillor Cox mentioned, which is from Sport England and Sport Swimming Pool at Tudor Meet in Christchurch. It's one of our biggest energy users as a site, and we've already been successful in getting a grant to do some work around heat pumps and better installation and better lighting, LED lighting on the site. So this is about photovoltaic solar panels, which is again part of the whole climate change agenda in terms of reducing our energy demands and generating renewably. And it's great to see that investment coming in from an external source to help us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak on this item? No. So the recommendation of the Cabinet paper is proposed and seconded. It was looked at by scrutiny. Can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's unanimous. So agenda item 7, it's the medium-term financial plan update. Again, this is one of Councillor Cox's papers, but as he's not in the room, he can't propose it. Can I ask if there's another member of Cabinet? Thank you.
I'm happy to propose, safe in the knowledge that I can pass back to Councillor Cox.
No, you have to present this one now. Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Is there a seconder?
Happy to second. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Hannah. So, Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Can I start by reminding everyone that we are in an unusual position to have a balanced MTFP for 4 years, and clearly we would like to maintain that if at all possible. These reports aim to do just that, and we're considering. So we are considering the impact of certain assumptions that were made in producing these reports, and what changes may have to be made. We have then proposed a financial strategy to support the delivery of the 25-26 budget, and a budget planning process and a key timelines for financial reports. We have presented the outcome of the CIPFA financial resilience review, and if you'll beg my forgiveness for highlighting certain paragraphs within that, on page, I think it's on page 122. And where it actually says that there are positive steps to improve financial resilience since the best value notice was issued. Another element said the BCP will manage its spending effectively within the budget for 23-24 and will set a balanced budget for 24-25 with a projected balance MTFP covering the 4-year period to 31st of March 28. It also identifies that member and officers now have a clear an understanding which is clearer than had been done before, and it also commends new political leaderships which is prioritising financial resilience. I think this independent CIPFA review really does glow with praise for what we have done over the last year or so. Finally, I would like to highlight the elephant in the room in terms of BCP's ability to continue, and that is the ongoing and increasing deficits related to the provision of SEND and the continuing underfunding by central government of the DSG. It would really be the easiest thing in the world to bury our heads in the sand and ignore it, given that the number of councils up and down the country that are faced with the same problems. We particularly have not done that. We have been very proactive, having written to the government and proposed certain ideas to them. We've not really yet had any meaningful dialogue, but just to reinforce it, I have written to our MPs and offered briefings in an effort that we can establish a cross-party consensus to try and resolve this issue, not just for BCP, but for up and down the country as well. So therefore, I really recommend that Cabinet approve the budget timetable and the process as set out in Appendix A, endorse the scenario planning exercise which guides the potential level of activity which may now be needed to present a legally balanced budget for 25-26, to approve the financial strategy designed to support the ongoing delivery of the balanced budget for 25-26 and the MTFP as set out in Appendix B, to note the outcome of the CIPFA financial resilience review and the associated action plan which we've put in place, and to note the letter submitted by the Director of Finance to DLUC and to CIPFA outlining the challenge that the deficit of the dedicated schools grant DSG presents to the financial stability or sustainability of BCP Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. So this item was also considered by Overview and Scrutiny Board. I'd like to invite Councillor Bartlett to address Cabinet and give any recommendations.
Thank you. We have no recommendations, but I would just like to mention that we also expressed our concerns about the ongoing DSG accumulated deficit and the length of period that this has been a problem. And for maybe 10 years or so, we've been living with this problem that's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we understand that the council is doing all it can do in order to resolve this. It's just, I just mentioned it because it is of continued concern. The other area of, I think, just a quick mention, are the risks associated with Carter's Quay, which is an issue which the council probably can't do very much at the moment with, because it's in the hands of the liquidator or the administrator. And I think that's it. Those are the two sort of burning issues, I think, which of risk that we have some concern about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett, and it was I appreciated hearing the debate yesterday from the Overview and Scrutiny Board. I think they picked up some really important points, and you're absolutely right. Those are two burning issues, particularly the DSG. Right, let's open it up to any members outside of Cabinet who might want to speak on this. I can't see anyone indicating. Okay, so over to Cabinet members for discussion. Councillor Burton.
Yes, I feel I ought to start off because we've had so much discussion about the dedicated school grant, and just say, from the Children's Services point of view, it is very annoying that in an improvement journey, the legislation and where we are at with the finances is causing all this angst. What I would also say, though, is that I know other local authorities, particularly in the southwest, are actually now realising that BCP are in the forefront of this and are looking towards us to help them find solutions to this problem. Therefore, the work that is being done is being noticed, and we're offering some hope to other places as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. Can I first of all express appreciation to Councillor Cox and Mr. Richards for all the work that is going on behind the scenes and brings us to this stage. And can I address exactly the same issue that Councillor Burton has mentioned and Councillor Bartlett has mentioned, the DSG deficit. I sat in at yesterday evening's Overview and Scrutiny meeting, and I recall hearing what was quite a staggering figure of £4 million a year, which apparently we are paying as interest in the debt on that deficit. And that is £4 million a year that could have helped us in terms of savings that did not need to be made for the current financial year. And it's going to be the same in future years if this situation is not addressed. The £4 million could be spent for the benefit of residents rather than as interest payments. So that said, I do wonder just how far we are chasing to try and get this resolved. I appreciate that Mr. Richards wrote to what was then DLUC back in May. That is now 2 months ago when he was requesting a meeting. I wonder if we are following up now that we have a new government and a new department whose name I can't quite recall. Are we pressing them for an urgent meeting to get this resolved? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Just following on for what Councillor Hannah just mentioned, I would like to just again pay tribute to Mr. Richards and his team and to Councillor Cox in the context of the horrendous challenges that local government finance is under and we continue to be under. I think it's easy to underestimate, forget just how far this council has come in the last year and a bit from where it was under the previous administration, and the achievement of restoring financial stability, credibility, and dare I say it, sanity to the council's finances, and actually at the same time to its reputation. So I don't underestimate at all the challenges that lie ahead. Clearly they are huge, but I just feel it's worth making that point about the journey we've been on. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Hadley.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to widen that, because I think, you know, there are leads in all of the departments across the council that have taken significant steps to support the finance team in making these changes. You know, and it's horrible for all of us to have to be making cuts to services that we know our residents value. But if you're running those services and you're having to step down and let people go, which they have, you know, that's a big ask, and I think, you know, all of them are to be congratulated on doing that and continue to have to do that, because, you know, what we've done is set a 4-year plan, which involves a lot of work. And Sarah here from HI, you know, there's a big piece of work for them to do in terms of managing that whole process. So I think a general thank you to the senior officers across the service would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Any other members? Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just a brief comment on a slightly different one. I note in the recommendation D about noting the outcome of the SIP for Financial Resilience Review and associated action plan. And I just wanted to highlight that, because when I looked at the report, that for me, that was one of the most useful pieces, because it's, you know, just to be clear for the public, if the, you know, if people are looking at the council's financial position and you know, trying to work out where we are, you know, that's a review of our finances by external public finance professionals who know what they're talking about and look at councils right across the country. So for me, that's one of the most useful pieces, because that's a sort of external independent eyes looking at what we're doing, coming up with some recommendations and action plans to improve what we're doing. But I think, you know, any sort of members of the public that really wanted to understand where our finances are, that's a really good starting point.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I think just to add to the discussion, I think everything's being covered, but I think we all need to take the opportunity, and actually, when it comes to the dedicated school grant, that is a looming, you know, that is a real issue that we are facing, and we are in a position now where Councillor Hannah said we have a new government, we have new councillors. We all need to be making sure that they are entirely informed of this issue, because this is a national issue and requires a national solution. We can't deal with this on a local level, and we need them to recognise that, because it is going to take government intervention to manage and to deal with. And again, thanks to Councillor I nearly said Councillor Richards again. Thank you to Mr. Richards, who's been banging this drum for many years now and raising this issue as something that needs to be addressed in a wide sense. Okay, so Councillor Cox, would you like to sum up at all?
No, just I think there's been a useful discussion. I agree that this challenge with the DSG needs to be grasped earlier rather than later. And whilst I think we can give the current new administration a week or two, I don't think we should give them much longer than that, because it is desperate, not just for BCP but for a number of councils across the country. So I think we should be getting on with that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. So the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. Can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? That is unanimous. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 8, the BCP Council Productivity Plan. Councillor Hannah is going to be presenting and proposing this paper. Is there someone to second? Councillor Martin. Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Hannah, over to you.
Thank you. To be honest, I'm not sure that there is anything very new in this report. It's very much pulling together what we already know is happening and is planned to happen in the light of the government's requirements to prepare a productivity plan and to submit it. As the background sets out, it covers the recent, current and future plans to make the best use of resources. And in terms of productivity, that is pretty well defined in section 5 of the background. Being responsible with limited resources, transforming and streamlining services, creating centres of expertise to be at the forefront of best practice, being innovative and digitally led to create efficiencies and monitoring performance and benchmarking against others, which is, of course, quite a challenge and which is what we are seeking to do. There are key performance measures which are set out on page 17 of the plan. Whilst it is open for questions, I'm happy to recommend that we do approve it and that we do submit it by the deadline, which is in 2 days' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. So this item didn't go to overview and scrutiny. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Graham Farrant.
So thank you. So I just wanted to add a bit of perspective to it from my point of view, having talked to colleague chief executives, because this was seen as an onerous requirement by government 3 months ago. Actually, government has imposed the requirements of productivity on the whole of the public sector. So I think it's just worth saying BCP Council has decided to use this in a proactive and positive way, really trying to summarise all the work that we were doing through local government reorganisation and to be really clear that we're trying to drive increased productivity and therefore better services for our residents as a result of lower spend. So I just think it is worth saying that, because we've deliberately produced an attractive document that we hope people will read. I have seen other councils' versions. They are not attractive documents and are not easy to read. So I just wanted to make that point, because actually we've put some effort into this because we think it could be useful for us as a council and particularly for the administration in driving through those savings and the greater productivity and efficiency. So I just thought that was worth saying, to contrast with the approaches some other councils have taken, which is it's yet another requirement from government. Actually, it helps us to drive the council in the right way, I think.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farrant. Try not to sneeze. This item didn't go to overview and scrutiny committee, so I won't invite the chairs to speak specifically, but are there any councillors in the room or online who are not on cabinet who might want to speak? Patrick Canavan, Councillor Canavan.
Thank you, Chair. I only just wanted to emphasise one section of this paper, if I may, and that's the section that talks about empowering communities. I am not arguing with the paper or what is being said within it, but the issue about empowering communities seems to me to cut across a whole range of different services, and I keep hearing it being mentioned, the importance of working with the community, or getting the community to help us both, well, in all services, in fact. And that I know from the paper you're talking about, exploring different models and building on examples of best practice and things like that. I think the important thing for me is the issue which you kind of just touched on in this paper about the relationship with all of that with the integrated care system, because this is a really, really important bit of work. And the two things I think that jump out for me. One is I think we just need to just take a cold and measured view about the capacity of the community sector to help us in this field. They're already doing the most amazing work, and the capacity is there, but I just think we need to make sure we've got that capacity in the right places and at the right time. So I think that's a job of work which I believe needs to be done more thoroughly, if I may suggest that. But the other thing I just wanted to stress is, from where I sit, Chair, there are internal barriers to helping communities to help us. There are bureaucratic constraints. Forgive me for using that word, but that's as I see it. There are bureaucratic constraints which are barriers to enabling those communities to help us deliver these services. And I really do think we need to look at our internal capacity as a council in order to be able to, in terms of officer capacity, in order to be able to ensure that we can do the necessary work internally that will in turn facilitate the community to help us deliver these services and try and overcome what I believe are obstacles which I think are preventing us from moving forward on this agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Canavan, and I absolutely can't disagree with a single word you've said there. Can I also see if any other councillors? Oh, I can see Councillor Steve Bartlett has his hand up. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. The only thing I would say is that I welcome this productivity plan. What I would say is I didn't actually know anything about it, and it was not included until very recently, I believe, onto the Cabinet Forward Plan. And for that reason, it didn't really give us an opportunity to consider whether we would put it on the overview and scrutiny forward work plan. However, I've had a quick scan through the report, and it really reflects, I think, what the council is already doing through its transformation programme, and it does package it in a very nice way. And I agree with the chief exec that this is a good document for people to read, to see what a huge investment that's gone into the transformation programme and where that is heading in terms of the output for our residents. So I do really welcome this, but it's what I think we've been doing anyway. As I say, I would like to have probably had this considered as part of overview scrutiny, but I wasn't aware it was actually on the Cabinet plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. Any other members outside of Cabinet wishing to speak? Okay, let's go to Cabinet then. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few points from me. I'm going to go down a well-trodden path here, just to mention the digital transformation. So obviously the report says that our productivity plan will be digitally led, and I completely get that, and I understand that. I just put a plea in that we do not leave behind people who are not in the digital space. And I use a good example of that because when we did the library consultation strategy, we had we did a lot of stuff on paper in the old-fashioned way, which actually was really well received by members and also by the public. So I just put that plea out there because certainly because of our age profile, demographics, etc. The second point I would like to make, again relating to libraries and community hubs in terms of productivity going forward, the library strategy and the community hub programme will have a huge part to play in this, I think. Just picking up on what Councillor Bartlett was saying about transformation, there's a quote in the report that says that transformation has been the main vehicle for delivering productivity. I think it's transformation is a word that is obviously attracts some criticism, doesn't it, from internally and externally, because sometimes people can't see the benefits of transformation. They can't actually see what's happened. And I think one of the problems of this is that the transformation has gone on at exactly the same time as relentless cuts to local government. And I think people see, all they see is cut, the grass isn't being cut as much as it was, the potholes aren't being filled so much. We're cutting, as referenced by Councillor Hadley earlier on, lots of cuts are being made to services, 40 odd million in the current financial year. So I think it's a challenge to actually get people to understand that transformation has happened and that the productivity plan actually is something that they can have faith in, and it has credibility. Two other points briefly, if I may. One is about partnerships. There's a reference in the document to partnerships which are clearly critical, and I think our own risk register references the fact that if our partnerships fail with stakeholders and business partners and other organisations, then that's going to be a problem. So I think just re-emphasising how critical that is. And then finally, picking up on what Councillor Canavan said, and the Chief Executive will be aware because I've raised one or two concerns of my own locally about empowering communities and our ability to get things done when people want want them done. So I give an example of it taking 5 years to transfer a recreation ground to a parish council, and to other issues which I won't go into now because they are specifically local. But we do have to address that as a major issue in productivity. And finally, I would like to commend the team that put the document together. This is a really attractive, interesting document. I'm hoping that people will engage with it, but as I said earlier, I hope that they see it as a credible piece of work that they can have faith in. And that is always going to be a challenge, I think, in the context of local government finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Wilson?
Cheers. Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, I would agree with the sentiments from the Chief Executive and Councillor Bartlett. I think it's a really good document. But what I really like most about it is we actually explicitly say what government and what this new government could do to be helping us. And so I'm just going to kind of briefly touch on a paragraph that within the document. Government can help us overcome these challenges in several ways by offering capital funding to support and invest to save initiatives. So I think this is a really vital thing. You know, we should be investing to save. I think previous governments have had a very short-termist approach. We should be thinking towards the long term and investing in our services in order to save money in the long run. Intervening on high public sector borrowing rates, providing better income funding certainty. I think this is really, really key because, you know, the government is going to be the government for the next 5 years, so they could at least have a 5-year plan minimum, and give us some certainty on funding. You know, there's many funding streams within my area, such as within domestic abuse, which run out at the end of this financial year, and we've got no certainty on whether we're going to get that same money. Hopefully we will. You know, I'm very optimistic about this government, but we need that certainty. Reviewing funding criteria and streamlining the reporting processes. So these are all things that government could be doing to help us. It's a new government. They all look very bright and optimistic, and I'm hoping that energy carries through and we see some really, really positive results.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. A very clear call to government there on what we need in local government, which is their support. It really is. Councillor Hadley.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on that. One of the challenges we've had with some of our major programs of money from government has been about the reporting process and the why. And I think it's really welcome, as the Chief Executive said, that we turned what was perhaps somewhat vague, and we might have wondered why they wanted to push us on productivity into a positive thing. But in the same way that Councillor Canavan was talking about in terms of empowering communities, I know there are issues around things like insurance where we seem to take forever to satisfy ourselves about the insurance risk, but actually ultimately it will be down to the community group. We have to make sure that we are the guardian of the public space and what goes on after they finish or if they stop work, but we do also have to enable them to get on with it. And in the same way as we're asking government to get out of the way, to give us money without putting us through beauty parades and making everything a bidding process against other local authorities, we do need to look in the mirror and try and do the same in empowering communities to get on with what they need to do. So I think it works both ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, just like other members, I found it a really useful read, actually, this report. And I think, you know, officers having put time and effort into sort of describing where we are, it's much better, I think, in this presentable report rather than just a fairly dry report to Cabinet. So yeah, it's really useful. Just to pick up on the points raised partly by Councillor Canavan about partnerships and empowering communities. I'm very aware of sort of our community organisations. I've sort of worked in that area for decades, it seems, in the sort of voluntary sector area, and I'm acutely aware that actually, you know, it's been really difficult the last few years for our local voluntary sector, particularly with, you know, pressure on funding from the local authority to support them in supporting all the various organisations throughout our 3 towns. In terms of working with the community and voluntary sector, and I think it says in the report about, you know, ensuring they have a voice at the table as part of the development of the integrated care system. You know, I was very pleased actually at our Health and Wellbeing Board on Monday. We had the Chief Executive of the Community Action Network sits on the Health and Wellbeing Board and was in attendance and at the table and raised the sort of the views of the community and voluntary sector. And also we had the Access to Food Partnership presenting to us at the Health and Wellbeing Board, which is a really sort of good news story, but also, you know, highlighting their sort of funding pressures in terms of continuing to deliver the work that they do. And, you know, at the Integrated Care Partnership board meetings that I sit on as well, the voice of the voluntary sector is there at the table. So that is happening and it's working. And I think it's for those of us for all of us actually within Cabinet, you know, to maintain links with the voluntary sector within our areas and make sure that that voice is heard and we understand their needs and the pressures that they're facing to help to support us, to enable the community to help us deliver what we need for our residents.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I was just going to add as well that I should declare an interest because we're talking about the BCP Access to Food Partnership. I am the chair of the management committee of the Branksome and Rossmore Community Fridge project that I founded 5 years ago, and we're very much involved in that sense in things that, you know, we rely on as a community, and especially in that food space where people are still really struggling day to day to make ends meet. But I did just want to say one of the things, and I know in the document it says around utilising partnerships, but something I'm always saying is that one thing BCP does really, really well is partnerships, and we see that through not just the Access to Food Forum or the Integrated Care Partnership, but also like the Age Friendly Forum and the Homelessness Partnership. And I'm really proud to see how that pulls together so much experience and so much expertise from different organisations to actually produce solutions. Obviously, though, as Councillor Canavan said, there is a huge amount of risk in the expectation that our voluntary sector can pick up for local authorities, and the ideal scenario would be that they don't need to, because we have a government which can provide a safety net for people when they do face hardship. However, I think you're absolutely right about empowering communities, and we've got some work going on around creating a framework for the council about how we really bring this not just as something we talk about over here, but how we actually integrate it into every area of the council to see where we can actually work and have better solutions and better outcomes on all sorts of areas of the services we deliver by leveraging our partnership work and our partners in the community who actually are the experts. So I just wanted to give that assurance that that is on the cards, and I'm hoping that we'll also be able to bring that into the scrutiny process as well, so that we can get a bit of a broader view from across the councillor base and have everyone feed into it. So anyone else wishing to speak from Cabinet? Nope. So I will go to Councillor Hannah to sum up.
Thank you. Just to express appreciation to all those who've commented for the remarks that they've made, which do seem to me to be supportive of the report, but simply underlining different aspects of what it is we need to be achieving in the future. So thank you to them, and I hope that we can agree the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. So we have recommendations that are proposed and seconded. Can I take all those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. So agenda item 9, which is pay and reward, and an update on the progress in conditions of employment. Councillor Hannah is going to be presenting and proposing the paper. Is there someone to second?
Second, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. This does come across as a relatively brief report, but can I say that there has been an enormous amount of work undertaken behind it, and I'm extremely grateful to the director and her team for all that has been done. The negotiations have been an officer-led process, but I'm grateful to her for keeping the leader and myself briefed on what is taking place. And indeed, there have from time to time been briefings to the wider cabinet along with senior officers. Just to summarise where we are, following the lengthy negotiations with our two unions, Unison and GMB, a detailed offer was set out and was extensively explained to all of our staff from January onwards this year. Both unions then balloted, with Unison members agreeing the offer and GMB not agreeing the offer at that stage. There were some further negotiations. The offer was improved, and the GMB agreed to put the renewed offer to its members. Unison feeling that with improvements they did not need to ballot again at that time. Unfortunately, the GMB membership again did not agree to accept the renewed offer. The approach up until that point had been that it was the overall principles on which the offer was based that were being put to union members and being explained to staff as a whole, not the individual salary outcomes. And what became clear was that GMB members were concerned to know what their individual salaries were likely to be, at least as indicative outcomes, before looking at the offer again. So in order to achieve this, all staff actually need to know what their indicative salary outcomes would be, and extensive work is being undertaken on this, which should be completed over the summer. And those indicative outcomes would be released to all staff in September. Following that, the GMB have advised that they would like their members to have a little time to reflect on that information, but that they would then hold a further ballot. Unison have also indicated that because of the new information being provided, they would need to reballot their membership. So we anticipate 2 ballots taking place in the autumn, and we hope that at that stage agreement can be achieved. All that said, can I say that we understand the natural frustration that staff will have had at the lengthy process that is being carried out. And all we can do at this point is express gratitude for their patience and for all the work that they do for the council and for our residents. I hope that clarifies the situation. For further detail, we can, of course, turn to the director. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hannah. Now, this was considered at Overview and Scrutiny Board. Councillor Bartlett, would you like to say anything, and were there any recommendations?
Nothing to add. There were no recommendations. The report was for information only. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any councillors in the room or online who wish to speak? I'm not getting any indication. So if we come to Cabinet now for discussion, any Cabinet members? I'm not seeing any indication. I think this was, you know, it was very well explained last night at Overview and Scrutiny, and I think Councillor Hannah's rundown there was really useful. So it has been proposed and seconded. Can I take any? Can I take a vote of agreement for this? Are those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. That's a very quick item, that one. So agenda item 10, which is the Arndale House and Kingland Road pool. This is one of Councillor Cox's papers, but obviously where he's not in the room, he can't propose and second it. So this is one I'm very happy to propose. Is there someone to second? Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. I just want to say we do have some confidential papers in here in the appendices, and that is particularly Appendix 1, 2, 3 and 4. So if we, as in all councillors attending this meeting and on both in the room and online, are going to discuss the detail of the papers, then we'll need to move into a confidential session where we exclude the press and the public. So if you think you're going to say something that extends into those appendices, then just let me know and we can go into that confidential session. Councillor Cox. Over to you to present the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. I don't really think there's very much for me to present other than what's in the papers. And I consider this to be a bit of a no-brainer as it ticks all the boxes that we need to dispose. We really do need to dispose of the lease and enable the development in this particular area. So it's with that I would recommend that the Cabinet recommend to Council that we grant approval for the surrender of the existing head lease and the re-grant of a long new lease to facilitate the head lease's proposed development in accordance with the terms of the heads of terms as set out in the exempt report attached Appendix 1. And secondly, to delegate the authority to the Finance Director in his capacity as Corporate Property Officer, the Director of Law and Governance and the Portfolio Holder for Finance, i.e. me, to finalise the detailed arrangements of the agreement to surrender and issue a new lease. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. So are there any councillors in the room or online who wish to speak on this who are not on Cabinet? Nope, not seeing any indications. So over to Cabinet. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yes, obviously I'm a ward councillor for Poole Town. This is this sits opposite the Dolphin Centre, and many of the units have been empty for some time, and it's quite a blot on the landscape really in terms of the town centre. People arrive there at the George Roundabout and think that they're vacant and therefore it's part of the decline of the town, and it's not. It's just that they've been sort of rendered unusable. So re-energising the area is really welcome. It is part of the estate that was passed to the council to manage along with the Dolphin Centre and the Kingland Road, and there are some concerns. We do need to revisit the George Roundabout itself and the whole access and movement around that area. So another huge building constrains that somewhat, and a lot of people locally are concerned about the size of buildings. But in terms of a town centre location, sustainability, it's right opposite the bus station, very close to the train station. It should be an opportunity for people to do more town centre living without having to rely on their car to get about. But obviously people get worried about the additional parking, the additional sewerage, the additional reliance on all the infrastructure that we have. But it's welcome to be moving on this, and I think it's something that we just need to crack on with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak? Nope. Councillor Cox, I'm assuming there's not. Yeah.
Nothing further to add. I agree with Councillor Hadley.
Yes, and me too. I agree too. I think that opposite edge is something that's going to really give a very good opportunity to change that welcome into Poole as you come in on the bus or through the train. So very happy to support this. Can I take all those in favour of the recommendations in Cabinet? That's lovely. Thank you very much. That's agreed unanimously. So the next item is agenda item 11, which is the south part of the Beach Road car park. Councillor Cox is going to present it, but as he's not in the room, he can't propose. Can I ask if there's someone to propose? Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. And is there anyone who's willing to second this? Oh, well, actually, I will second this one, seeing as Councillor Cox can't propose and second. So again, like on the previous item, we have some confidential appendices in the paper. Appendix item 2. If we, not just Cabinet, but councillors would like to discuss that, then just let me know and we'll go into confidential session. Councillor Cox, over to you to present.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Again, I'm not going to dwell on this very much. I'll only just say that this is the second time as this has been to Cabinet, and it's already been passed as far as I'm concerned. But this is the final report to really just tick all the boxes. So it is with that I really recommend to Cabinet that we recommend to Council again, having considered the responses received from the public notices, that we approve the resolution to appropriate for planning purposes the south part of the Beach Road car park, as shown in red in Appendix 1, once it is formally closed, and reaffirm the approval to proceed with the disposal of the site pursuant to Section 233 of the Town and Country Planning Act. We also delegate authority of the Corporate Property Officer to record by way of a memorandum the appropriation at the required time, which can be placed with the deeds for future reference. We also reaffirm our approval to delegate the authority to the Corporate Property Officer in consultation with the Director of Finance, the Director of Law and Governance, and the portfolio holder for Dynamic Places to select the preferred offer and finalise the detailed terms of the disposal. And also finally to note that subject to the Cabinet approval of its forthcoming business case, which we've talked about earlier, it is the Council's intentions to make improvements to the retained rear car parking area, including consideration of the scope to increase the current capacity, provide more compliant spaces, and improve the accessibility and wayfinding, as well as consideration of the local traffic management scheme. The Council and its consultants are now engaged in this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. I do agree with you. It feels a bit like deja vu for this one. Can I ask if there are any councillors outside of Cabinet wishing to speak? I can't see any indications. Okay, anyone on Cabinet wishing to speak? Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I mean, this obviously was looking at the consultation process and the people who were concerned about the losing the car park, and we had John Sprackling earlier concerned about the North car park being retained. I was at Connecting Christchurch yesterday, and because it was after 6 o'clock, I was able to go on the seafront on my way home, and it was really busy by Branksome Chine. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. Given I knew this was on the paper on the agenda today, so I went up there. The car park at the bottom was absolutely full with cars waiting to park. The car park that we're talking about had one vehicle in it, and this is mid-July. It was 6 o'clock, so it was, it may have had more during the day, but it really is a very scarcely used car park and an underutilized resource. And I'd much rather support car parks than lots of on-street parking, because of the impact that has on congestion and on other uses of the highway. But it doesn't feel like it's a car park that we should be hanging on to for 11 months a year, hardly used, just for that extra month. The presence of the also a restaurant has changed the use of that car park and made it much busier. And there's something about, should we be prioritising the car park right by the beach for the disabled and for families with young children, and persuading other people to go up the hill. But it needs extra signage. It's better signage. I don't think we should be waiting. I should be getting on with better signage to get what is there used during the summer done. But I don't think we should be holding up on the basis of the objections. I think they are worrying about things that actually I'm not sure are borne out by facts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Nope. Councillor Mike Cox, anything to add?
No, again, I completely agree with Councillor Hadley on that. I should just get on with it.
Thank you very much. So that has been proposed and seconded. Can I take all those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. That's agreed unanimously. So we move on to agenda item 12, which is the revised BCP seafront strategy. I'm going to be presenting and proposing this paper. Is there someone to second? Councillor Wilson, thank you very much. I'm going to present and then we'll go over to Councillor Bartlett, as this was at scrutiny yesterday. So the seafront strategy was created in April 2022 and was approved by the previous administration. And I think we kind of need to cast our eye back to what was happening at the time. We were still in a period of low interest rates. We also were still within the midst of the global pandemic. And really this paper was written, or the strategy was created to reflect that context. So when we took over administration a year ago, we felt that there was an opportunity to reconsider the current context and maybe make some changes to the seafront strategy. And just to put those contextual changes down, we have a very different financial landscape where the cost of borrowing has gone significantly higher. We also have a construction industry facing around about 45% inflation since that time. And we have also had a change of administration and a new corporate strategy. So there's quite a lot around the seafront strategy that has changed. So this was our chance to take another look at it and see where we could bring it up to date to allow officers to get on with their jobs. Some of the key changes within it are looking to the market, or whether we're talking about private investment. We've had some really successful private investment recently across the seafront, and whether we can use that those commercial opportunities a little bit more to bring investment into our seafront buildings. And we also want to look further to how government can help us when it comes to investment in those buildings, and like where we've been very successful with securing the levelling up funding. This is a bit of an opportunity to relook at how government can help us potentially further, and also to reflect on the fact that we now have that brilliant fund to be able to make the most of our seafront, which obviously hadn't been obtained when the seafront strategy went through. Just to touch on an issue that went to audit and governance a couple of weeks ago, which was raised initially by Councillor Bartlett. We have had some challenging discussion, I would say, as a community on what the extent of the commercial offering should be on the seafront. The seafront strategy, as it currently stands, was very, very commercially driven, and it was in that context of kind of a COVID bounce back, and said that we want to try and put as much on the seafront as we can to bring in income to support council services. We've decided to kind of scale back on that commercial push, and instead focus on our communities and the uses of the beach that we think contribute to our community's health and well-being in particular. That's not to say that we don't want to see commercial offerings on the beach, but what we're going to do, which is slightly different, is make sure that those offerings go to planning committee, and that residents have the opportunity to actually get involved in the democratic process if they wish, and object, or help really to shape what our seafront looks like. And that comes out of the fact that our corporate strategy now says that we're an open, transparent and accountable council, putting our people at the heart of our services. The final thing to mention is that we have brought forward some other priorities for the seafront strategy, which includes a focus on accessibility, and whether we have a potential to become, the destination for accessibility, including accessible toilets, making sure our seafront is accessible, and also having things like a way to get from the beach actually down into the water, and how we can best maximize the accessibility of our seafront, because we do have an amazing, very calm sea a lot of the time, and it's perfect opportunity to have to be able to make sure that everyone gets to enjoy that experience. And the other focus is around children and young people and their use of the beach. We know that there are many children not in BCP and across the country who have never had the opportunity to visit the beach. For us, on a local level, I think it's essential that every child has that experience and that opportunity. And as it's quite a cheap day out in the grand scheme of things, making sure that there are accessible routes and we're removing the barriers. And the final thing to add is around the environmental. we did want to reconsider the fact we have we do have a climate emergency, and even though we have this amazing asset in our seafront, we also have a lot of responsibility in maintaining that asset and keeping it a safe environment for everyone to use. So again, just reconsidering how we respect the environment and work with it, rather than potentially change it, which we don't want to do, as we see ourselves as custodians of that. So I won't go on, but I'm really, really pleased. I just want to say thank you to Gary in particular, and also to Andrew, who is not with us, but has contributed a huge amount to this paper. I've been really, really pleased to work with them and to work with Cabinet on shaping it, and getting these revisions in place. So if I could start by going to Councillor Bartlett, if there is anything to add from scrutiny.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, we had a very interesting debate on this last night, but I think in broader sense, the board were supportive of the changes to the strategy, and basically supported the recommendations of the paper. I don't think I've got anything further to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. Can I see if there are any other councillors in the room? Councillor Canavan, if you would like to come up.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm most grateful in your remarks for your actually mentioning the sea, because it wouldn't be a seafront without the sea. And it just it kind of makes me just raise the question about sea quality. So for me, one of the interesting things, if not the most important thing in this paper, is the idea that there's going to be an implementation plan to follow to actually put this into practice. I think that's crucial. And one of the things that came out of the very interesting discussion overview and scrutiny last night was the importance of involving ward councillors in that implementation strategy for those areas of the seafront that are in their wards. I very much look forward to that. I'm just making an early pitch for Boscombe Pier because it's in my ward. But in terms of the overall strategy, one thing that I think is really welcome is the slight shift in emphasis or the mention that of the importance of the safe and healthy communities. And this isn't for me just about physical health. This isn't just about having sport and recreation available on the beach to improve people's physical health. It's also about people's mental health. And it is an important space, in my view, to assist those people who are having mental health issues in terms of an area where they can go for peace and quiet. So that areas should be available for that, and I'm sure there will be, but I just think it's really important to embrace that when we come to the implementation strategy. The water quality, I just seen an email which I'm sure Councillor Hadley knows much more about than me because I don't understand the technology, but it's a new website that measures the water quality in real time, and so it allows people to assess what the water quality is. I mean, that's just amazing technology. One thing that did slightly trouble me was the fact that the project involved in pushing that forward doesn't seem to include any kind of public health involvement in the sense of relating the issues to do with water quality and possible bacteria in the water with the public health issues. And it would be great if we could find a way of being able to do that. I don't know whether that's possible, but that would be most welcome. But the other thing I just wanted to mention, if I may, Chair, is just this issue of maintenance. If we're going to have a seafront, it's really important to maintain it. That means working toilets, accessible footpaths, I mean, the beachfront team, I think, do an amazing job in keeping the beach clean. But you know, those pavements sometimes are difficult to navigate, even for able-bodied people. So people that are less mobile, I think, find it quite difficult from time to time to navigate the sand that builds up on the footpaths. So that issue of maintenance, I think, is really important, and I look forward to seeing something in the implementation plan about how we might be able to do that. But the other thing, finally, if I may, Chair, the one thing that I think is really important in this policy document is that it's a policy, and it I think it's really important that it is used to ensure that there is some coherent practice across the council in terms of planning and licensing and tenders. You know, we've encountered one or two little hiccups, haven't we, about those sorts of things in recent times. So it would be good to see some joining up of the dots on all of that to ensure that we actually embed this as a policy and that it is embraced across all of those functions. And that, of course, does, you know, lead to the inevitable question about resources. And my final plea, again, about the seafront strategy as a whole, without wanting to steal Councillor Martin's thunder, is the importance of arts and culture and things like Arts by the Sea, because again, this is a way that people can enjoy the offer that we have here in Bournemouth. It helps people, I think, in terms of their personal development and their personal well-being. So it is an important element which I hope won't be forgotten. So thank you for allowing me to say that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Canavan. I think that some really important points to raise, and I certainly, during scrutiny last night, I think that the board took a real deep look at some of these issues, and it was really good feedback, which I'm pleased to take forward, because sometimes having those fresh eyes on it actually does help to improve. What I wanted to say just before we go to Cabinet is that one of the discussions from scrutiny last night was around young people and their kind of access and feeling welcome on the beach. I did actually want to make a slight amendment to the revised objectives in 2024, where it says, I'm afraid these aren't numbered, but it's on page 497 in 2.5, which is the key summary of updates to the seafront strategy. In the second table, in the right hand column, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's the one at the very bottom. So it says, encourage active, healthy and independent lives by removing barriers for all our communities to access the seafront, with a particular focus on young people and those with disabilities. Councillor Aikenhead mentioned last night that we don't explicitly mention access for children, and the fact we do have some children who don't access the beach. So what I just wanted to do was include children in there. So it's children, young people and those with disabilities. And Councillor Bartlett, I don't want to be exclusive in that, but I don't want to get a long list. I think where we talked about young people, we just wanted to add in children. That includes those as well, and people with disabilities. That's not to say that anyone else is not welcome on the beach, or that we won't be looking at barriers for everyone. Okay, so if everyone is happy with that amendment, I'll go to Cabinet. Andy Hadley.
Thank you. I'd like to speak, but I was just want to coming back on that particular paragraph that you've highlighted, because the meeting I mentioned already, Connecting Christchurch, is about frail elderly. And you know, if we are looking at barriers, and I know Councillor Canavan mentioned it, but they were re-tarmacking part of the prom, and I stopped and chatted to them, and they had all sorts of abuse from people saying, why aren't you doing potholes on the street? And it's about making it a level surface that makes it easier for people to access. So I do wonder whether if you're adding to this, whether you should actually include the frail elderly. And I appreciate we don't want to have a list of all of the protected types, but that's quite important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, I suppose it's following on from Councillor Hadley and yourselves amendment. I'd be really keen to kind of, because I think I've been in council now 7 years, and a lot of these issues have always been there. You know, and we've always talked about addressing them, but we've not really actually kind of done something. So it's good to see the strategy come forward. But I think I'd almost be keen to see kind of almost like a sub kind of strategy or even an action plan in terms of that objective come forward kind of thing. So actually saying what we're going to do in order to reach that objective, you know, in terms of trying to make our seafront accessible, because I think we've got as well a really good opportunity here to be, as a tourist resort, to be one of the most accessible seafronts in the country, you know, and a really good opportunity to kind of make that a unique selling point of where we live. So yeah, I would really kind of echo Councillor Hardy's comments and thoughts on adding that elderly part to. I know, again, don't want an exhaustive list, but would recommend that. And just also just to add one final thing, just looking at the character zone map, I really liked it, and I just wanted to take a moment to just appreciate how gorgeous the area is that we live in. You know, just looking at the photos, I couldn't stop scrolling through them round in a circle kind of thing, just how diverse and how lucky we are to live in the place that we live. So yeah, that was all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. There's something a bit sad about such an amazing, natural, beautiful environment being in black and white on a bit of paper. And actually, you're absolutely right. It's we need to remember what's out there actually, and how stunning it is. Councillor Martin, did you want to speak on this
one? Yes, first of all, just to say I'm absolutely delighted with this report, and thank you and the officers for all the work that's gone into it. I'm particularly, I don't think it will come as any great surprise, I'm particularly delighted by the emphasis on protecting our natural environment, the recognition of our internationally recognised diverse habitats, and things like improving access and health and well-being, all the things that all things that are really close to my heart. So this is great. I'm trying to avoid using the H word too much today, because I always mention, you know, Highcliffe, but particularly we have obviously we have an incredibly diverse seafront coastline along BCP, and at the other end, at my end, we have incredible habitat SSIs, SCNIs, and actually, if I just may share a moment that I was particularly pleased. I had a walk along the seafront a couple of days ago, and it was the first time I noticed a whole range of sea plants that have taken basically growing on the foreshore, which is I don't know what any of them were, but they're clearly sea plants, and it's just another example of what an amazing habitat we have. So I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to extend my thanks to Gary, who's sitting at the back. I know, and apologies, I've only ever met you online, I think, so I didn't recognise you when you came in. So if I blanked you, I apologise. But I want to thank Gary for working with me on, and I won't go into the project, but a really important accessibility project, accessibility project for our coastline in Highcliffe. The other thing I would mention, and thank you to Councillor Canavan for not stealing all of my thunder, turning to sort of the more developed part of our coastline, Bournemouth and Poole and what have you. Yes, absolutely right. I mean, Arts by the Sea is coming up, so we're getting ready for that. But to me, it isn't just about the physical infrastructure, which is amazing, and it is incredible, and millions, well, hundreds of thousands of people come to our seafront. We have this town has received some pretty negative publicity in the last few months, and it's easy to forget when you read that just what an amazing place this is. And Councillor Kieran mentioned that just now, but it is amazing, and you know, people come to it for the fact that we do have an amazing seafront. But it isn't just about the infrastructure; it is about people coming for arts and culture, for festivals and events. And I think that's, you know, an absolutely vital part of our strategy to pull people in and make sure they have a great time. And that obviously is all about enjoyment, but it's also about health and well-being, which is another thing I'm always banging on about at the moment. So really welcome the report for so many reasons. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Burton.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to echo and amplify two comments, slightly different ones that people have made. Firstly, I'm so pleased to see that children are mentioned, both children and young people, in this report and in the discussions at scrutiny. It shows that children and young people are being thought of in the local authority. Now, I went back to a discussion I actually had with the corporate director of Children's about the UNICEF initiative about, and there's one word I'm going to disagree with here, child-friendly cities. Of course, BCP isn't a city, but the whole idea of being able to make an area child friendly, I think is so important. And our seafront, of course, is a place for children. They need to enjoy being there and they need to be safe, as with young people. And I'd also like just to pick up something that Councillor Canavan said about the water quality. Interesting about public health, because of course public health was started all about water quality, and it seems ironic that that's something that was started purely due to bad health due to water quality has been missed out. I just saw the irony and I thought I'd share it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Councillor Hadley.
Yes, indeed, the Broad Street pump in central London. Take the label off the pump and stop cholera. I think that's a really, really excellent point. One of the things I was going to highlight was that the seafront strategy is not just about the beach; it is about the areas. Obviously, Highcliffe's been mentioned already, but from all the way from Upton through Poole Harbour and Hainsbury Head, the excellent coverage we had on Countryfile just at the weekend, and also on Springwatch about some of our natural spaces very close to the sea. Which was all good in terms of the wider offer of what BCP is about. It would be wrong of me not to mention the flooding, coastal risk erosion and the work that we'd have to do to maintain the cliff. The reason why there's so much sand and people get frustrated by the sand on the prom is because we are protecting the bottom of the cliff. A point that the Chief Executive has made a number of meetings that I've been at, that's the main reason. The tourism is a nice byproduct of what we need to do to protect houses, and that's important, as is the work that's going on at the moment on the Long Groin. But the sea quality that the Councillor Canavan mentioned is really also key, and part of the visit I did yesterday in Christchurch there's an issue about flooding every time it rains, because everyone puts rainwater down the sewage system, and therefore we end up with raw sewage flowing into the sea. So it starts in people's homes. It starts with people actually recognising that they are part of the solution, and also currently part of the problem. And if they want to have nice beaches to be able to swim in, then they ought to be looking at where their rainwater goes as a first step. I think we should be making more of the Durley Environmental Hub in that and many other regards. It was quite an expensive project, and I don't think it's delivering what we originally intended it to deliver. And part of that again is connecting those things, putting people in touch with that. The opportunity around linking the proactive monitoring. There's lots of proactive monitoring now going on in terms of water quality, and I think the near real-time monitoring that Councillor Canavan mentioned is an interesting development. It's one that adds to the work of Surface Against Sewage, but also that we need to work in partnership with the water companies, but also with our citizens to improve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Any other Cabinet members? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, just a brief comment from me. I was taking Councillor Wilson mentioned about the pictures and the realisation about the real unique diversity of all of our sort of coastal areas, and I was the same when I read through the report, that it made me realise that there's particular areas of our sort of seafront that I frequent, but there's other areas I haven't been to for a number of years, and I'll probably need to remember to go to them, particularly places like Mudderford and Christchurch. And, as a child, I used to come on holiday to the New Forest and go down to Mudderford, and I probably haven't been there for a number of years. So yeah, and I think it's important to remember as an authority, we've got a really sort of unique set of environments along our sort of coastal strip and our port. And as Councillor Martin said, you hear and read a lot of criticism of our area, but I think whether we grew up here or we came to live here, I think people come here and stay here for a reason. It's because of the real unique environment that we've got, and we all know it's good for our sort of health and well-being. I'm pleased that it does talk in here about it's sort of the corporate plan priorities of high quality of life for all, and people can be active, healthy and independent, and making the most of our seafront environments is key to that for all of those that live throughout the three towns. So I take on board the points the comments about public health as well, and it sort of does talk a bit about public health in the report. But yeah, I think water quality is an increasing concern. So yeah, I sort of take on board those points as well. So, but yeah, I'm all in favour of the revised seafront strategy that we've got before us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I think that's almost everyone who's spoken on that one. Anyone else want to? No? So I'm very happy to sum up. I think that was a really good discussion, and like I said, I think the discussion last night at scrutiny was really, really helpful. We talked a little bit about the Durley Environmental Hub, and that's an example of one of those projects which was funded externally, but part of what wasn't funded alongside it was the revenue to be able to deliver what we actually wanted to, which is an educational place for people to understand about impact on the seafront, whether that's single-use plastics, water quality, those kind of things. So I consider that, like I said to scrutiny yesterday, I would consider that it's done, it's built, but until we actually have the delivery of the outcomes that we want to see, which is around education and around awareness, the project is not finished. And I think this strategy enables us to look for partnership, partner working, whether that's with a charity, with organisations in this area, with the private and public sector, to look at how we can actually deliver what it was meant to be and what it still will be. I'm absolutely determined that it does have that, because as much as it's a lovely building, it is not delivering on the purpose it was built for. I just want to go back to our discussion at the start, which is including children and young people and those with disabilities. I think I'd ask Cabinet whether, I've been wondering, rather than mention sort of older people or people with frailty issues, I was wondering about mobility issues and whether that would cover older people who perhaps that have that difficulty moving around the seafront. So, Councillor Hadley, is that kind of what you would think mobility would be?
Yes, it is particularly about mobility. And some of that isn't just about physical constraints. It might be about eyesight and other things. But yes, absolutely.
So if we look to change that to particular focus on children, young people, those with disabilities and mobility issues, or mobility challenges, or what we'll do is we'll work with officers to get that exact wording finalised. But I think it's right to recognise that actually there are people with all sorts of different challenges, and we want it to be accessible for them if we're going to be able to market ourselves as somewhere that is friendly and accessible. Okay, so I think that is enough to say on that one. We've discussed it for a little while now. So can I take all those in favour of the recommendations? That's lovely. That's unanimous. Right, so moving on to agenda item 13, which is the BCP Urban Forest Strategy. Councillor Hadley is going to be presenting and proposing. Is there someone to second? Councillor Martin, thank you very much. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, so this has been quite some time coming, and it's a really important piece of work. I've just had a query to deal with about an oak tree, a street oak tree, and so we're wanting to see it felled, and people valuing trees in the urban environment. It's a really important area, and we have a real difference in the most tree-lined areas and the least tree-lined areas, and therefore in the benefits that they bring people. This is about the vision, key guiding principles and priorities for action that the Urban Forest Strategy lays out. We did a public consultation back in October 22 to January 23, and we had 2 workshops with partners, and there are lots of people like the Forestry England who are very keen to support and help in the urban environment, and the National Trust as well. So it's important that we work with partners on that. It is about nurturing our existing trees as well as planting new ones, because the metric that is used is canopy cover, and obviously you get a lot more canopy cover from an existing tree and looking after that rather than just about planting trees. Councillor Keddy made an interesting point about the difference in difference within awards. So some parts of some awards are well tree covered and others are not. So although the analysis in the document goes down to ward level, and the analysis behind that goes down further, and the opportunity to look at that. But we also need to look at the areas in particularly, I know Deputy Leader, your ward and my ward are near the bottom of the pile in terms of current tree cover, but in particularly in the very town centre, the opportunities are quite limited for that. Funding is a problem. We need to look to partnership working and grants. We need to look at encouraging the community to adopt and look after the trees that are in their space, and to also nurture them in their own gardens, and as developments happen, to recognise the value in terms of cooling, in terms of air quality, in terms of health benefits, well-being for the public, and the many benefits of trees are outlined on page 609. I don't need to go through all of them, but there are many benefits of having trees in our urban space that are outlined there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Now, this item went to Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee, who actually held an all-councillor briefing on it, rather than sort of going through the formal public scrutiny that they would usually. And I believe we have some feedback from Councillor Rigby, who is the chair, which is going to be read by Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, Councillor Rigby unfortunately couldn't make it this morning, so he sent an email to Cabinet. I'm just going to read it out on his behalf. I was hoping to make Cabinet today, however, I have a clash with another meeting. Just to make you aware, we had a very good briefing session for Environment and Place ONS members last week in lieu of a meeting cancelled due to the election. We made the decision to open this to all members, and the recording is available in Teams. During it, 2 issues came up which I think are worth sharing with you. Firstly, and this may be more of a scrutiny observation, more deprived areas may not have the capacity or longevity to take responsibility for trees long term. Secondly, there was a point raised about integrating fruit trees into the scheme where possible. And finally, there was mention of potential working group to come together, and we had a number of members that expressed an interest to be part of this. So that was the feedback from Councillor Rigby.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. So I want to first go to any councillors in the room who would like to speak on this, or online. I can't see anyone indicating. So let's open this to Cabinet. Councillor Martin.
Waiting. Thank you. I'll be brief, and again, really absolutely delighted to see this paper and to welcome it, particularly given the high level of tree cover in Highcliffe. Although I am more than aware, as has already been mentioned, that that's not the same across the conurbation. And actually, I was looking at some statistics nationally yesterday so according to the most recent estimates, only 16% of people have access to a wood of at least 2 hectares within 500 metres of their home. So there are obviously some huge challenges about this in the conurbation. So I'm more than aware of that. I just wanted to talk about trees as not just about themselves, but actually as places for health and well-being for a start. Back to that again, and there is such a body of evidence about health and well-being and trees, but also about wildlife, about the value of trees in terms of wildlife. So I'm not going to mention where it is, but there is a wildlife environmental ecological tree corridor through one of our areas, which is a home for deer, badgers, otters, foxes, hedgehogs, and 13 species of bats. Now, some of you may not necessarily know that, but that is the case. So this urban forest strategy is really, really important, and I thoroughly commend it. I think it also feeds into our local plan. So the local plan is incredibly tough, I think, environmentally. We've got some great environmental policies in there protecting trees and other habitat. So I think that's really important to bear in mind. And I would just commend, if anybody wants to know a bit more about trees, there is a brilliant book called The Hidden Life of Trees, which I've only just come across, and it's a fascinating exploration of the complex tree ecosystems. I know that might be a little bit technical, so apologies for that, but it's a fascinating read, and I think this is a really, really important issue, and thank you to all those who put this report together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Any other Cabinet members wishing to speak on this one? Nope. Right, well, it has been proposed and seconded. Can I take all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. So as we move on to agenda item 14, which is the core gigabit fibre network, this is in the Dynamic Places portfolio, which is with Councillor Slade, but I'm going to be presenting and proposing the paper. Can I see if there's anyone who wishes to second? Councillor Wilson, thank you very much for seconding that one. So I'm going to give a brief introduction as to why this is coming to Cabinet and some of the reasons behind. The core gigabit fibre network has taken Cabinet a little while, I think, to kind of get our heads around in understanding exactly what this project is, the benefits and the negatives, and actually trying to consider whether this is something we want to continue to put money into to create this WAN network. It was initially approved by Cabinet in 2021 with from the Futures Fund, which was the loan from the Public Loan Board, to be completed via borrowing, and the idea was to install 70.5 kilometres of core gigabit fibre into the ground, which would then be an asset for the council, with the hope that it would bring savings as we were working across our council estate and would be able to use that infrastructure, but also social and economic benefits, and hopefully in the 50 years of that loan would bring in a surplus to the council. There were some changes made to this in August 2023 to scale back the project and actually lower the amount of investment in it, and to bring the amount of cabling down from 70.5 kilometres to 21.6 kilometres. We're now at the end of phase 1, which means that that cable has been installed in the ground to coincide with highway works that have been going on. And as we move into phase 2, or potentially don't move into phase 2, the idea is that we would then be installing this ourselves and paying for that infrastructure cost. Now, when we re-looked at this as a Cabinet, I think it was pretty clear to us that this was a bit of a legacy priority for the previous administration, and actually we now have such significant changes in our construction costs, as well as the economic climate, borrowing interest rates, that having considered what has currently put in the ground, it's time to consider if we want to continue on with phase 2 of the project, which is where the bulk of the investment is going to be. Having discussed this as portfolio holders, I think we, for me and Councillor Slade, this is now an opportunity to consider whether we want to continue, and the recommendation on this paper is to actually stop continuing with the project and not proceed with phase 2 to install that fibre inducting. The paper obviously goes into a lot of detail, and I really want to thank Ruth and her team, the officer team, who have created this paper, written this paper in consultation with the portfolio holder, and all the work that's gone into the Smart Cities work, into the Smart Places programme. There are a lot of figures. I won't go into them all, but if there are any questions that come up, then I would be happy to answer them. So if we go to councillors outside of Cabinet, online or in the room, would anyone like to speak on this paper? I'm not seeing any indication. Oh, Councillor Bartlett, there we go. Apologies for overlooking you there. Over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, sorry, I was a bit slow on the draw there, but yeah, I agree entirely with this recommendation in the paper. Indeed, I was totally opposed to the project in the first place and said so at the time. It didn't make sense to me at all that with so much infrastructure already in the ground that we would want to, in some places, almost duplicate what was already there. And with a number of companies already involved in this, it makes sense that we partner with them to provide this sort of infrastructure. So I very much welcome this paper, but I do really regret the fact that it will have cost our residents probably getting on for £500,000 that will not be of any benefit, I don't believe. I think that's money effectively lost, and it's a salutary lesson, I think, to us all that, you know, we're spending taxpayers' money here. We've really got to be very careful about the projects that we go ahead with, and this is an example of one that we shouldn't have gone ahead with. And I thank the council for actually stopping this at this point before we waste even more money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. Any other councillors outside Cabinet wishing to speak? Nope. So let's open this up to Cabinet. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to agree with Councillor Bartlett. I actually went back last night to the November 21 full council meeting, and the councillors that spoke against that were Councillor Cox and Councillor Brown on financial reasons, yourself, Councillor Earl, on community reasons, and me on technical reasons, and Councillor Bartlett. And yet the Conservative administration pushed it through. Despite it being clear from Councillor Broadhead, who doesn't seem to bother coming along to our meetings. I don't know why, as leader of the opposition, he clearly didn't understand that what he was approving at all, and yet was pushing it through. We are writing off nearly £500,000 worth of expenditure. We've also got to find additional money in the MTFP over the next 4 years for what was promised in terms of delivery from this scheme. So financially, it is a real challenge to the organisation, and a salutary lesson in digging holes and sticking public money in it. And all we have is plastic pipe that's not doing anything. And I did ask the question in the lead up to this meeting, is there actually anything that we are using it for? Because the 5G work in Lansdowne and Boscombe, CCTV across particularly the pool area, traffic signals, you know, are we making any value out of this £500,000 worth of investment? And I haven't seen a change to the paper or any understanding that we are. And that is really regrettable. If you look at the map in Appendix A, it was clear to me from the start that this was a really disjointed network. It wasn't linking our existing sites, and we are in a process of trying to reduce our existing sites anyway. So you know, the question was, why did anyone even think in the first place that we should be doing this? I think there probably are more ducts in the pool area because we had a private CCTV network, and it was a great idea to be doing this 20 years ago. And that was the point that I made in full council 4 years ago. So I think absolutely we should stop it. We should never have spent the money in the first place. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Hadley. And I completely agree that, oh, can I just check, does anyone else on Cabinet wish to speak before I kind of sum up? Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly to agree with what Councillor Hadley said, you know, I think I spoke against it at the time when the expenditure was being approved. And for me, it was, substantial expenditure on this infrastructure, but it needed a sort of 50-year payback period. And, with the way technology changes, for me, it just raised lots of concerns that actually to make the whole sort of project sort of payback, you had to spread this expenditure out over 50 years and the payback period. And I just thought things are going to change dramatically within the next 50 years, within the next 10 years in these areas. So, yeah, I did have serious concerns about it at the start, and it is regrettable that, we're going to have to write off investment costs, but we are where we are. And I think, we've got to make the decision before us for the sort of longer term benefit.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Any other members of the Cabinet wishing to speak? Councillor Burton?
Just really to again echo some of those things. I think this is one of those examples of a shiny thing, which seemed to be in vogue for a little while, and the investment, 50 years for technology investment. If you think what technology was like 50 years ago, would you want to be paying for something now that you thought was good 50 years ago? And the answer is definitely no. It would be interesting though to ask the question whether we could use any of what's been put in the ground already and do any research to say if any of it could be salvaged to be done something useful with.
Thank you. I'm going to go and sum up at this point. Yes, I think if there are any opportunities that could make use of what's currently in the ground, we need to grab them with both hands to try and pull back some of that money that has been sunk into this, very ill-conceived project. And I know that this was something we discussed as a cabinet about what we would be losing, and it wasn't clear at the time actually if there was going to be any opportunity. However, this does kind of park the project. They are going to stay in the ground. We're not going to go digging them back up. So if anything comes up in terms of external investment in the future, then we can potentially revisit. But this paper is really around the current financial situation, whether we want to take that risk. This speaks to this administration, where we are taking a sensible approach to our finances and not risking taxpayers' money on schemes that quite frankly don't have the business case behind them or the viability to back them up. We don't want to put our faith in a market that's currently very volatile, and actually at the time that this was approved it was pretty clear that we weren't going to have clear sailing, particularly where borrowing was concerned. So I'm glad that we have been able to pause this project before we went into the larger amount of spending for it, but it is regrettable that the decisions from the previous administration have led to a bit of a sunk cost for taxpayers and for all of us in difficult financial times. It's not where we want to be. So can I please take all those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you very much. Okay, so we're getting on for 2 hours. I think we will do this item and then we will take a break. So item 15, Adult Social Care Transformation Business Case. Councillor Brown is going to be presenting and proposing this paper. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Hannah. David.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I will, members have obviously had the report that's before them. I will read through some parts of it, I think partly for benefit of members, but also any public listening to the meeting. Because for me, adult social care is one of those less visible services to residents. We've discussed already things like our urban forest strategy and our seafront strategy earlier in the meeting, and those are very sort of visible things for residents. And I know all of us get contacted often by residents about highways issues and parking and those sorts of things. But adult social care is one of the it's the biggest sort of cost area of the council. And although it's one of those less visible services, it's critical to the lives of thousands of families across our towns, and it's critical for people to just continue living independently and living a good quality of life. So the report details in quite a lot of detail, and in the appendices it gives lots of information for which I'm sure members have sort of acquainted themselves with, and I know I've had discussions with various sort of cabinet members. But adult social care services, both locally and nationally, have faced real challenges in recent years. There's the ageing population, there's increased demand for support, more complex needs of those that are calling on our services. And as a result, there is a lot of risk in relation to our ability to continue to deliver our statutory responsibilities within the funding that's allocated for adults and for families who require support. So we do need to constantly look at how we're delivering those services, and we need to have long-term sustainable change to ensure that we can continue to support our residents and that the way we deliver those services is fit for the future and affordable. The report sets out the adult social care transformation business case for consideration, includes plans to establish a fulfilled lives programmes with 4 priority projects, which I'll mention in a moment. There's proposed investment of £2.9 million to lead to improved outcomes for adults who draw on the support within Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. And in essence, that £2.9 million proposed investment is anticipated that the one-off investment will lead to recurring savings of approximately £3.5 million. There's been a lot of work by officers over many months to build this transformation business case and put this together. It details within the report the strategic case for change. So adult social care services have developed a real understanding of the areas of strength and development through numerous activities, particularly over the last year. I know I came into post May of last year, and very quickly I was acquainted with the self-assessment that the adult social care had carried out, which is all part of our preparation for Care Quality Commission inspection arrangements. And there's a real detailed report looking at how adult social care is delivered and the areas of strengths and weaknesses, and an assessment of where we're good and where we need to work harder. That was then quickly followed by a peer challenge from the local government association. Members from other councils and representatives of the LGA came in to look at our self-assessment and look at recommendations of areas that we needed to work on. We've worked with other people at the LGA for a financial review to understand the financial challenges and opportunities that we've got. And a key part of that is looking that we spend an awful lot of money on adult social care services. All local authorities do, but actually looking at those areas, benchmarking ourselves against other local authorities and similar local authorities to say, well, hold on a minute, we're spending less in this area, we're spending more in that area than the average. Why is that? Is it due to difference in population, or is it just to the differences in the way that we deliver services to other authorities? And that's really informed this transformation business case. And we've worked with other sort of partners and organisations to help inform this business case. None of this is really new to adult social care. Adult social care, in my experience over many years, are used to modernising and reshaping services to meet the increasing and changing needs of residents. But the scale of this sort of transformation project is different to previously. The Fulfilled Lives programme is detailed in here. We're going to be looking at how we work, looking at better short-term support, looking at self-directed support, and looking at support at home. The paper also details in paragraph 23 for members some detailed costs and benefits, and that's sort of detailed in even more detail within appendices. It's not just it's got costs and benefits there, but this is not driven by saving money. This is driven both, there will be reductions in costs, but there will be improved services for residents and delivering services more effectively. I'd like to particularly highlight paragraphs 29, paragraph 30 of the report, which state the quality of adult social care services is inspected by the Care Quality Commission, CQC, against a quality framework. The recommendations in this paper will improve the Council's ability to discharge these duties more effectively and secure a positive CQC rating. Adult social care services haven't, in terms of what the local authority delivers, haven't been inspected for a number of years, and the government have changed that so that CQC have done some pilot inspections of local authorities, and they've started to roll that out wider now. We're expecting probably within the next 6 months or so that the CQC will visit us to inspect the way that we deliver adult social care services. Partly that's how we deliver it, but also how we are working to improve those services and improve the way we constantly deliver. And this adult social care transformation paper is a key part of what Care Quality Commission will be expecting us to be doing, to constantly assessing how we're delivering our services and be improving that. So for me, approving this transformation business case is a key part of making sure that the inspectors that will be visiting us, you know, can see the work that we're doing. I know there was a good discussion at Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny on Monday evening, and I know Councillor Canavan's here, and I think he'll be proposing a short adjustment to our recommendations before us. But there's also been discussions within Cabinet over the last couple of weeks and with officers, and that's resulted in some revised recommendations to the ones that are tabled before you. I think if Sarah can just send round to the Cabinet members, so if they've been sent round, the revised recommendations, I'll just talk you through those revised recommendations. So obviously we've got recommendations, and these are recommendations to Cabinet that we recommend on to Council because of the amount of expenditure in the transformation business case. This is a recommendation to Council, so it'll go to full Council. The slightly revised recommendations are in A, it's that we approve in principle the business case for new adult social care transformation delivery model to improve outcomes for residents and to achieve financial efficiencies and savings enabled by investment of up to £2.9 million. So that's in principle the whole business case of up to £2.9 million. Recommendation B remains, agrees to the establishment of a formal transformation programme of fulfilled lives. Recommendation C is changed to read, agrees to an initial 12-month investment of £1.79 million with an interim report to Cabinet on progress of the design phase in January 2025 and a full report by July 2025 with recommendations for further investment. The reasons for those changes really are that this is a substantial investment. And it's one of those areas, adult social care isn't an area where we say we'll spend this amount of money, this will change this number of these, and the different numbers will come at the end, and this is the benefit. The adult social care is a system, and it's about changing the way we work and we manage that system, and we pull different levers within that system. There's lots of interlinking, so you can't just do one part of it and get an outcome. You have to work on all parts of the system in line with each other. So I think it's important. It's always been envisaged that, you know, there will be breaks within the programme to sort of stop and review and reset and move forward. And so really the adjusted recommendations are to enable Cabinet to review progress as a sort of interim report January and then in July next year, to recommend then the further investment in the programme because it's a substantial investment that's been requested. And recommendation D remains as is, but I think Councillor Canavan has got an addition to recommend to that. So happy to answer any questions. But
thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I just wanted to confirm with the seconder that we would be happy to adjust and take those revised recommendations rather than continuing with the as they are in the paper.
Confirmed.
Lovely, thank you very much, Councillor Hannah. Okay, next, can I invite members outside of Cabinet if they wish to come and speak on this item? Councillor Canavan? Sorry, Councillor Canavan, I should have said in your role as Chair of Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Yeah, don't tell anyone, Chair, but I quite like that. It was a really good discussion at Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Monday, and in relation to the recommendation D, the additional sentence that we wanted to add, and I'll explain why in a minute, but it reads, in particular, the committee be invited to review the progress against the 4 priority areas of the Fulfilled Lives programme and the risks and opportunities of data with ASC transformation. So that was the additional sentence that we wanted to add. And the reason is, as Councillor Brown alluded to, this is a massive piece of work. And the list of things that we could ask to scrutinise are considerable. I had a list and it kind of scared me a bit, but this was a way of trying to narrow our focus slightly. So the key things, I think, are those priority areas set out in the Fulfilled Lives programme, and you know, for us to be able to review the progress against those. And the other key risk, I think, that came out of the discussion was all around data and the operation of Mosaic, what it can do, what it can't do, and to make sure that we have a look at that. So that was the other reason why we wanted to make that recommendation. So I would ask you to consider that. While I'm here and I have the opportunity, can I just say that this is the first time I've heard about this change to the money, and I find it difficult to believe that this wasn't known on Monday. And it's disappointing that I have to come and hear that for the first time this morning. I'm not seeking to be too difficult about it, because I'm sure there are really good reasons for doing it. Otherwise you wouldn't be proposing it. But the scale of this transformation is huge. So I had no doubt in my mind when I read the paperwork that the 2.9 million was completely justified, and there's quite a lot of detail in the report about where that money is going to go, and that upfront investment is absolutely critical to being able to deliver that programme. So at some point I'll be interested to see quite how that arithmetic has been arrived at. But I do think it just I think reinforces the point, Chair, that the need for us to have a close look at this in terms of scrutiny is really important, because we need to be sure that not only is the money being spent wisely, but that in turn the savings which are going to come from it are realised, because that's the reason why we're doing it in the first place. And the point I think was really well made on Monday that if you look at the demand graph, you know, it's not going down. So we do have to find a way of operating this, working differently in order to meet this challenge. With that, I'll probably shut up and ask you to consider adding that sentence to the recommendation D, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Canavan. I am now going to see if there are any other councillors who are not on Cabinet who wish to speak. I'm not seeing any indication. So if we can open this up to Cabinet, please, and we'll go into the reasons why Councillor Canavan and address your concerns in the debate. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. Could I just confirm to start with that Sarah has emailed the amended recommendation, and that does already include the wording that Councillor Canavan has requested. So little d now reads, invites the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee to provide regular scrutiny of progress towards benefits and sustainable change. Stop. In particular, the committee be invited to review the progress against the 4 priority areas of the Fulfilled Lives programme and the risks and opportunities of data with ASC transformation. So that is already there, and I'm assuming that that is the amendment that has been proposed, seconded, perhaps accepted is the wording.
Yes, absolutely. So as long as Councillor Brown is happy to propose that, and Councillor Hannah, as long as you're happy to second that, then yes, that becomes the revised recommendation, becomes the substantive. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm happy to accept that actually, and having listened to the Health and Adult Social Care Committee's discussion and the proposal, looked at that, I'm happy to accept that. Yeah.
And just to clarify, for all concerned, as well as Councillor Canavan, the rationale behind the change to little c and the change in the number to 1.79 million being agreed at this stage. Councillor Brown has already explained the overall rationale and the report identifying the need for improvement and the need for efficiencies and the need for better delivery for the adults concerned. The report also indicates the various ways in which changes can be made in order to achieve both the improvements for those concerned and the projected savings. The consideration, though, is that it also sets out the need for a design phase to look in detail at how the changes can actually be implemented. And that is where it is not quite 100% clear as to what all actions will need to be taken and what the costs will be of those actions as the process continues. So that is why there is a request for a further report to Cabinet in January 2025, where the design phase would have been completed, where that would be set out in more detail. And it may well be that the figures will change on the basis of the work that's undertaken at that stage. The advice from the director was nevertheless that in order to make sure that we do make good progress, we should be budgeting at the level of the 1.79 million. And that is partly because there is a need to recruit additional staffing to undertake the change process. And we can only recruit additional staffing if we have made a proper commitment and if they feel that they are being recruited for an appropriate period of time. So that's the rationale for that. And there will be the opportunity more likely in July 2025 when we receive a further full report for additional funding to be agreed. And whether that brings us to precisely the 2.9 million or to a different figure remains to be determined. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hannah, for that explanation. Can I ask if anyone else on Cabinet would like to contribute at all? Nope. Thank you. So we have that proposed and seconded with the revised recommendations as read by Councillor Brown and confirmed by Councillor Hannah. Can I check all those who are in favour? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. So we are getting on for we've gone over 2 hours and 10 minutes now. I think we should take probably a 10-minute break and come back at about 25 to 1. So yeah, thank you very much, Cabinet. See you. We'll come back soon. Welcome back to this July Cabinet meeting. We're going to get straight back into the agenda where we left off. So agenda item 16 is the adult social care charging policy additions. Councillor Brown is going to be presenting and proposing this paper. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, I won't talk too long on this item. Obviously, members have had the report about the additions to the adult social care charging policy. The reasons for this is that we've recently been subject to a legal challenge around the content of the adult social care charging policy, and as have a number of other local authorities. And we've received a recommendation from the local government ombudsman to make an inclusion in the charging policy following a complaint. So therefore, changes and improvements have been made to the policy, which are set out in the report alongside the reasons and implications. The report covers it in the appendix, where it gives the entire sort of adult social care charging policy. Obviously, it's a long policy, but it is highlighted there what changes there are. The changes are around when financial assessments are made, and that we have to carry out financial assessment of an adult's financial resources in order to determine their contribution towards the costs of care and the support that they require. And part of that is looking at disability related expenditure, and it's the wording around and how explicit we are around the allowances for disability related expenditure, but those need to be clarified. So I won't go too much more into it. All the details are there within the report, but it is a sort of legally technical area. If there are any sort of particular questions, I know Betty Butlin, our director, is online and available if we need to sort of go into the sort of more detailed technical legal matters behind it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Are there any councillors online or in the room who are not members of Cabinet wishing to speak? Nope, no indications. So over to Cabinet. Any members? I'm not seeing any indications there, and not really much to sum up on Councillor Brown. So I think we will go straight to the vote on this one. Can I take those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you very much. I think that's probably the quickest item we've ever seen go through Cabinet. Next on the agenda is item 17, which is the Children Safeguarding Partnership Review. This is going to be presented and proposed by Councillor Burton. Is there someone to second? Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Burton.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. So currently there's a Pan Dorset Children's Safeguarding Partnership. A safeguarding partnership is defined under Children's Act 2004 as the local authority, the integrated care board for that area, and the chief of police for that area. The three, well, actually now this four, the new legislation says that a fourth part that can actually be included, which is education. Safeguarding partners should agree on ways to coordinate their safeguarding services, act as a strategic leadership group and support and engaging others in the implementation of local national learning, including from serious child safeguarding incidents. Currently, there's a Pan Dorset Children's Safeguarding Partnership across BCP and Dorset unitary authorities. This review for the Pan Dorset arrangement has been considered by the statutory parties. That's all three of them. That's at the moment. The reason for the recommendation is that the difference between the two local authorities, that they operate differently, and their approaches to safeguarding and working practice often diverge. Added to this, the recent changes in the Working Together Safeguarding Children's Guidance published in December 23, trying to implement the changes is more difficult as a Pan Dorset partnership. Another factor is that the Dorset is a pathfinder under the Stable Homes Built in Love initiative. BCP does not meet the pathfinder criteria and therefore can't be as part of that, and are of course focusing on improvement. So the two local authorities members are trying to travel in different directions due to their distinct priorities, and careful consideration to separating the partnership has been mutually agreed. The most important consideration this will lead to improved safeguarding outcome for our children and their families within BCP and also within Dorset, but of course that's not our priority. This does mean that the partnership will work. This doesn't mean, sorry, that the partnership will work in isolation. Collaboration will continue, and the arrangements for the continual collaboration is in paragraph 9 of the report. The safeguarding partners have agreed that they are to commit to maintaining the current financial contributions so that neither LEA is requiring any additional funding. So in summary, the advantages for dividing into 2 separate partnerships far outweigh any disadvantage, and there's no extra cost, and this will result in safer outcomes for BCP children.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I'm just going to see if any non-cabinet councillors have anything to add. Nope. Oh, sorry, Councillor Burton.
Yes,
It took me a second there to realise what I'd said. If I can open this up to cabinet members, anyone want to raise anything? Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, I think I've raised this concern before, but obviously there are some families where people are nip across the border or they are complicated across our borders. So I'm hoping that the partnership working will be seamless despite separation. It's really important for those in crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. I'm sure Councillor Burton will address that when he sums up. Anyone else wishing to speak? I was just going to add, I think it's very it takes a bit of self-reflection from a collective group of when a board decides to change its structure and actually go from being pan in terms of collecting across an area to recognizing that actually it's run its course and is preventing some of the safeguarding outcomes that we really need, because it's much more optimal and efficient for decisions and work to be done on that local authority basis. But likewise, boundaries are arbitrary in a lot of ways, and I think we need that reassurance that where we do have our conurbations stretching into the Dorset Authority area, that the availability of services is going to continue. So, Councillor Burton, do you just want to add a few words to sum up?
Yes, I mean, only this was add. I mean, yes, borders are always an issue. There'll always be that. I know, because I mean, my ward is on the border of BCP, and therefore I'm very aware of that. The assurance I can have is that it's going to be cross working, which is outlined in the paper, and therefore I would add that should solve that problem, or at least alleviate it enough.
Thank you very much. So it looks like we have a proposal that has been seconded, a recommendation that's been proposed and seconded. Can I take all those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Right, just moving on to the final part of our main agenda here. So item number 18 is the Youth Justice Plan 2024 to 2025. Councillor Burton is going to be presenting and proposing this paper. Is there anyone to second? Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Burton.
Thank you very much again, Chair. This is the Youth Justice Plan. This is a statutory requirement to publish an annual Youth Justice Plan, which must provide specific information about the local provision of youth justice service. The Youth Justice Plan needs to be approved by full council, and it will be presented at full council next week. So, highlighting some important points of the report, the rates of young people entering the justice system for the first time improved significantly in the past year. The combined Pan Dorset rate, and this is all those Pan Dorset arrangements, which at the moment is no plan to change. The combined Pan Dorset rate of 161 per 100,000 year 10 to 17-year-olds entering the justice system for the first time. This represents a 30% reduction on the previous year. For context, this local rate for the year 2019-20 before the pandemic was 309 per 100,000. This is the first time in living memory this has happened, that we've had a reduction. One of the reasons for the recent reduction in first-time entrants is the joint work between Dorset Combined Youth Justice Service, Dorset Police and BCP Council, targeted supported service to divert children for formal justice outcomes. This work is followed on from recommendations in the recent inspection published January 23 last year. And I will just remind people that was the inspection came out as good for the Youth Justice Service. One area of risk within the Youth Justice Grant, sorry, let's say that again. One area of risk is within the Youth Justice Grant, which makes up about 30% of the funding. And we talked about these sort of risks earlier on in an earlier paper, because of course this comes from the government, and the size of the grant hasn't yet been confirmed properly due to the election. But this makes the budgeting and the planning, of course, difficult. But I say we have had a discussion about that earlier on. Coming back to the drop in numbers entering the youth justice system, most of these who enter are in fact vulnerable young people. Research shows that most young people who enter the youth justice system are first known to the police as victims. They often have experienced significant trauma in their earlier life. So work has been done to help identify those who are at risk of offending, and early intervention work has been done with many of them. Interventions such as speech and language therapy. This approach is new and innovative and seems to be making a difference, improving outcomes for young people and stopping more people from becoming victims. Early trauma also has an impact on behaviours in schools, putting young persons at risk of exclusion. These young people have also been targeted with early intervention work. To highlight a summary of implications, young people from minority ethnic groups and young people in the care of local authority are represented in the youth justice system. So that is something that I think we do really need to look at. And I would remind you, of course, young people in care of the local authority, we are their corporate parents and they are ending in the youth justice system. So I think all of us need a mind on that. It did say here, one thing I'd highlight. So 5 out of the 6 of people were permanently excluded from school. 2 out of 6 had education, health and care plans, and 6 were previously known to children's social care. So yeah, just to highlight that. So I'd ask Cabinet to recommend this for approval. David Webb, the report's author, I can just see he's just come online, so he might be able to answer any technical problems if you might have. I'd like to thank him actually, because it's a very readable report. It was, I know I read this report quite late and it actually wasn't such a problem because it was nice to read and I found all the information really close at hand. So thank you, David. Okay, any questions on that?
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Can I see if there's anything from outside of Cabinet to raise at this point? Yes, I can see Sharon Carr-Brown. Would you like to come in, please?
Hello, thank you, Deputy Leader. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Just wanted to check because it's the first time I've spoken. Yeah, it was really interesting to read this report. I'm speaking as a new member of the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I haven't actually attended a meeting yet as a full member because of the general election. But I just wanted to reflect just for a few moments. There's some really important stuff in this report. Particularly around concerns, I think, for the council, particularly around funding. I know that that's just been touched on by Councillor Burton, but it's the fact that we don't have even 2015 levels of funding back yet as part of the grant, and we're not sure of our funding for the turnaround programme either post-March 2025. The other aspect of that is really highlighted, I think, in the report is the focus on speech and language therapy, which I completely and totally support, particularly with the potential quite high profile of people with learning disabilities in amongst the offending. So my point is that I'm coming to is I actually think we need more scrutiny of this. Now, I understand that the timing of the scrutiny committees was disrupted by the election, and I get that completely. But actually, if you look at children's committee agenda, it's down as an information only item. And I find that surprising. And I suppose I just wanted to make a plea at this stage that this, and it's something I will talk about in children's as well. But I think given all the importance of this, and as Councillor Burton has just said, we are the corporate parent. I think this does actually need more input from our processes, from our oversight. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr-Brown. We will, I'm sure Councillor Burton will address some of that in his summing up. Can I please invite any members of Cabinet who wish to speak on this item? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, it was just a slight query about the governance. I just noticed that obviously both ourselves, Dorset Council, share the membership, but I just wondered about the chairing of it. Obviously, it states that Dorset Council are the chair and Bournemouth ourselves are the vice chair. Is that something that's consistent throughout, or does that ever change? And if it is consistent throughout, is there a reason or rationale behind that?
I'm so sorry, Councillor Wilson. We were just having a conversation about process.
I think Kathy's going to answer anyway, so that's fine.
Kathy, please do come in.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Just to say there is a contractual agreement in terms of that PAN arrangement across Dorset and BCP. We manage the service. And so we manage the service, and so the agreement is that Dorset will chair the board. However, I sit as vice chair, and so when the chair is not there, then I will chair the board. So that's the agreement. It's very similar to other PAN arrangements like our regional adoption agency.
Thank you very much. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Just an observation and also a question. First, the question though. To David, it's interesting that obviously one of the biggest risks currently is the delays in the youth justice system, and I just wondered if you could expand a little bit on that and whether there's any light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously, we're aware that the new government is trying to address problems in the criminal justice system and delays in the court system, but could you just expand a little bit on that, and then perhaps I can just make my observation after David's answered that. It's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. David.
Thank you. Yes. So good afternoon. I'm David Webb. I'm the head of service for the Youth Justice Service. The issue with delays in the youth justice system actually is probably the whole system, youth and adult. And the main area of delay that we identify is in the investigation phase. So between the offence happening and the police reaching a decision about what action to take. And there are various reasons for that. Obviously, police capacity is one of them. And some of the evidence gathering nowadays is more complicated because quite a lot of evidence is on mobile phones, for example, communications between people who might be suspected of being involved in an offence, or sometimes the offence is online activity itself. So if there's mobile phone evidence, that can delay the investigation further. And one of the difficulties that we've identified as well, kind of linked to that, is that sometimes children have several different offences under investigation, and each investigation is led by a different officer in the case. So there is both an issue about speed, but also coordination. Sometimes one case might get to court only a few weeks before another case arrives, and so on. So I've been doing some work with the DCI in Dorset Police and with the Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor for Wessex to follow up individual child level concerns, so we can try and expedite and coordinate those investigations, particularly for children where we're really concerned about perhaps the seriousness of the offending, the level of need, and the risks that whilst there seems to be no consequence to the offence because nothing's happened immediately, they might carry on offending. So we're tracking that, and I'm hoping that we're about to confirm a draft protocol that's been agreed to enable us to work with the local policing area with a detective inspector being allocated to chase up investigations for specific children that we identify as the highest priority. The delay is less so in terms of once the police have made a decision between that happening and the first court hearing, if the case is going to court. And cases that offences that are perhaps a bit less serious and can be dealt with through out of court disposals are generally dealt with in a more timely way, and they can be dealt with quite quickly on some occasions.
Thank you, David. Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you very much for that. My observation was my fellow ward councillor in Highcliffe, who is considerably younger than me, obviously, has been going into our local schools in Highcliffe and I think also in Christchurch outside the ward to set up sort of youth surgeries with the students. And the last one he came back from last week, and he was telling me he was really taken aback by the feedback from the students. I mean, we're talking about 14, 15-year-olds here. About their fears for their own safety, for them becoming victims of crime, but also the potential for them to be drawn into crime, because we all know how that happens. And it just struck me, it hadn't struck me until I read the report, that actually there may be some information, some useful feedback from the schools. David is thinking, sorry, that's not this David, it's my David, he was asking how he could feed this into the system, how this information might be used in terms of children's services and support for young people. So there might be something in this in terms of getting it from that at that point from the young people before they become victims or before they get drawn into crime. And I think it's something that could be linked up with other members across the conurbation to feed into the system. So just an observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Can I ask any other Cabinet members? Councillor David Brown.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, just a couple of comments on this. I've been around as a councillor in Poole Council and BCP for 17 years now, and I remember seeing youth justice plans sort of year in, year out, and lots of reports and papers and policies and that which all relate around this. And you don't always sort of see the outcomes and see them come to fruition, and for me the sort of key parts of this, and it details it in the executive summary of the report, but also in paragraphs 5 and 6, where it talks about the reductions in the numbers of young people entering the youth justice system for the first time, and statistically significant numbers. Doesn't look just like an annual variation. It's sort of 30% reduction this year, and when you look Pan Dorset in 161 young people per 100,000 this year. Back just before pre-pandemic, that was 309, so it's virtually halved in that period. And I know it talks then about the number of children within Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole has dropped from 79 children last year to 52 this year. And each and every one of those is sort of makes a real difference in that young person's life. The numbers that we can actually work with, and I know it talks in there about the turnaround programme and working with children on the cusp of the youth justice system. And for me, we've got to be doing a lot of things right in terms of the policies and the plans that we've got in place, and the work of all the staff across agencies, across police, across health, across local authorities. Something's working if we're seeing that significant drop in numbers. And I know there's lots of details within the report about areas that serious violence duties and all those sorts of things, but I think we do need to sit back and think, actually, when we look at these plans and policies and what actions are being taken, for me those numbers show that actually it's worth all the time and effort that everybody's putting in across all the various agencies to make a difference, because that's making a difference to these young people's lives, not just now, not just this year or next year, but for the rest of their lives, really. So for me, it's really significant to see those numbers.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak on this? No, Councillor Burton, if you could sum up.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of points here then to go over. I totally agree with Councillor Cahill Brown regarding the funding. Be able to plan with funding, know what you're going to do in future years is so vital, and I do agree with you there. That's why I made the point earlier on. As to what goes to children's open scrutiny, I know historically this report has gone to children's ONS. I know this time it wasn't there because of the election and that, but you are right. I believe it was on the agenda as information only. That I'm afraid is down to the chair and the committee. And therefore, it's up to them to decide what to do the work on. There is another one coming next year. Of course, maybe there is a committee next week. If you have a word of Democratic Services, there may be a way to have a look at this report in another way rather than a pre-scrutiny way of looking at it. I don't know, but I'm sure Democratic Services could advise on that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of children's scrutiny, as you're probably aware, and yeah, having the input from them I think is really important. The youth surgeries, I'm really pleased to hear these are going on. There's a number of them now going on. Unfortunately, I don't have any secondary schools in my ward, so I don't do any. But I would love to find a way to feed back that. I think we can do some work to find how that can happen. And likewise, I have to offer that if anybody is having a youth surgery at a school and they would like me to attend at all, if I'm available, I'll be more than happy to come along to hear firsthand what's going on, and spread ideas from that point. Picking up the last thing what Councillor Brown said, yes, I totally get that. Every one difference is, and it's not only to that young person, it's their family and their community, of course, because that is offences not being committed, and it makes a big difference.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. So if we can move to the vote on this one to accept the recommendations, can I see all those in favour, please? Thank you, that's unanimous. That brings the bulk of our agenda to a close, and we're now going to hear item number 19, which is the urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive in accordance with the Constitution. There's a bit of a list, and that is because we didn't have a cabinet meeting in June. So if I can pass over to Graham Farrant, can you tell us about any urgent decisions that you've taken since then?
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Perhaps the biggest one was to cancel meetings during the pre-election period. That was possibly the biggest decision. We maintained regulatory committees, but not the decision-making committees. Otherwise, one was to support an HR support pilots project, which was grant funded from the Department for Business and Trade. One was to continue the council new build housing and acquisition strategy, to reallocate funds and to approve individual sites. That had, I think, been through Cabinet and was a decision on behalf of Council. One was to approve an increase in the capital programme for Poole Museum capital programme, which was sort of entirely funded by grants, and within that, that grant envelope to approve a new capital programme for £300,000 for the new ceramics and design gallery. There was a decision to purchase 6 food waste collection vehicles so that we could proceed with delivering food waste collection in Poole and to all flats by March 2026, as required by the government's waste reforms programme. And the other was a Towns Fund programme to approve entering into a legal agreement for private investment of £2.5 million, and delegating authority to the Director of Law and Governance and Director of Finance and the Interim Director of Investment and Development to negotiate that. So 6 decisions, Deputy Leader. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Graham. And just to reassure, it's not ideal when things go to our Chief Executive to make urgent decisions. We would always rather than come to Cabinet, but a lot of these items, in fact, all of these items were time sensitive, which is why we need that urgent decision. Okay, so agenda item 20, which is the Cabinet Forward Plan. I am assuming that it was published yesterday with some new items, of which I would ask councillors to have a good look at, especially those on scrutiny committees, and see if there's anything they want to consider. And finally, I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. So all that's left for me to do is to wish everyone a great rest of their day and to formally close the meeting. Thank you.